My brothers and sisters, I want to speak directly to you today because I know there is a deep hunger in your heart. You've been praying, seeking, and longing to hear God's voice with clarity, but there's a silence that surrounds you. That silence isn't God being distant, it's a call to examine your heart, your habits, and your life. There are things standing between you and the clarity you need, things that have become obstacles, distractions, and barriers. Now hear me, I'm not talking about some far off, unattainable connection. I'm talking about hearing God's voice in your everyday life, in the small moments, in the decisions you make, and in the whisper of His direction that is often drowned out by the noise of this world. There's a divine purpose over your life, a call to greatness, to change, to fulfillment. But in order to walk in that calling, you must first make a choice to quit the things that have been hindering your ability to hear His voice clearly. Today we are going to confront 6 habits that are robbing you of the ability to hear from God. 6 habits that, once broken, will open the floodgates of divine revelation. But this isn't just about hearing for the sake of hearing. It's about moving with purpose. It's about aligning your life with the voice of the one who created you, the one who knows your destiny. So I ask you to open your heart, be ready to receive, and let's begin this journey of transformation. God has been speaking all along. It's time for you to hear Him like never before. This intro sets a spiritual, reflective tone while inviting the audience into a transformative experience. When I say faith over doubt, I'm not just talking about believing in the good times when everything is going smoothly and the road ahead is clear. No, I'm talking about the kind of faith that stands firm when you can't see what's ahead. I'm talking about the faith that says, even though I don't have the answers, even though the circumstances don't look favorable, I trust God completely. Faith is not a feeling, it's a decision. It's a choice to trust what God says, even when your mind and heart are filled with uncertainty. Doubt, on the other hand, is like a cloud that covers the light of God's promises. Doubt makes you question the very nature of God. It causes you to doubt His ability to lead you, to provide for you, to guide you with clarity. It tells you that God's voice is too far away, that His plan for your life is too big, too impossible. It whispers in your ear that you're not worthy, that you don't deserve to hear His voice or walk in His calling. And when doubt creeps in, you become deafened to His whispers, distracted by your own fear and disbelief. The Bible tells us that without faith, it is impossible to please God. You cannot hear God's voice if you do not trust His ability to speak to you. Faith opens the channel between you and God, clearing the static and noise that doubt creates. Without faith, your spirit becomes dull, and the connection between you and your Creator becomes weak. Doubt will convince you that God is silent, but faith declares that He is always speaking. Faith says, even when I don't hear anything, I know He's here. Even when I don't understand what's going on, I trust He's leading me. Faith is not blind optimism or denial of reality. Faith is the assurance that God knows exactly what He's doing, even when we don't understand it. Faith doesn't need to see the entire road ahead to take the next step. It simply believes that the next step is the right step because God has already gone ahead and prepared the way. And when you walk in that kind of faith, doubt loses its grip. The voice of God becomes clear, not because He's been silent, but because your faith has removed the obstacles that were standing in the way of His voice. Let me tell you something powerful. God doesn't need you to have all the answers. He doesn't need you to have it all figured out. What He needs is your faith, your unwavering belief that He is who He says He is, and that He will do exactly what He promised He would do. Faith makes you receptive to His voice. It opens your ears to hear the instructions, the corrections, and the encouragement He has for you. Without faith, you are simply guessing, walking aimlessly in the dark. But when faith rises in your heart, you begin to move with purpose, knowing that God is leading you, that His voice is speaking, and that His plan for you is unfolding in perfect timing. So let me challenge you today. Quit doubting God. Stop second-guessing His ability to guide you. Stop questioning His love, His purpose, His plan. When doubt rises up, choose faith. Choose to trust His voice, even when it seems faint. Choose to believe that God is speaking to you and that he's speaking with clarity. When you choose faith over doubt, you open the door for God's voice to be heard with unmistakable clarity, because faith is the key that unlocks the communication between you and the one who holds your future in his hands. There's a word we all know too well, noise. It surrounds us in every direction. The noise of the world, the noise of other people, the noise of our own minds. And in the midst of all that noise, it becomes difficult to hear the voice of God. We live in a world that thrives on noise. From the moment we wake up, we're bombarded with sound notifications, alarms, television, radio, music, social media updates, and endless conversations with people around us. The noise never stops. And here's the thing, this noise is not just external. There's an internal noise that often drowns out the voice of God. To anxiety, fear, stress, and the constant stream of thoughts that race through our minds. This noise comes at us in every direction, filling up the spaces that should be reserved for stillness, for listening, for reflection. It keeps us distracted, busy, and unfocused. It keeps us from being able to hear what God is saying. And let me tell you this, when you're surrounded by noise you cannot hear clearly, you cannot hear the whispers of God when your mind is cluttered with the noise of the world. The distractions may not always be loud, but they're persistent. They come in many forms: the pressure to keep up with the world, the distractions of entertainment, the pull of social media, and even our own endless to-do lists. All of this noise causes us to lose our spiritual sensitivity, to become spiritually deafened to the still, small voice of God. Silencing the noise means creating space in your life for God to speak. It's about stepping away from the constant barrage of distractions and making room for the most important voice you could ever hear. The Bible talks about Jesus going away to a quiet place to pray. He withdrew from the noise, from the busyness of life, to reconnect with his Father. If Jesus needed silence to hear God clearly, how much more do we need that silence in our lives? If we want to hear the voice of God, we must be willing to shut out the noise that's cluttering our lives. In a world that demands your attention at every turn, silencing the noise requires intention. It's not something that will happen by accident. You must be deliberate about it. That means turn off your phone, stepping away from the constant stream of information, and disconnecting from the noise that fills your life. You must create space, time, and place for God to speak to you without interruption. I'm not talking about a quick 5-minute prayer while you're on the go, or a half-hearted attempt to hear from God while you're distracted by the world around you. No, I'm talking about intentional, undistracted time in the presence of God, where you focus entirely on hearing his voice. This might mean turning off the TV, setting aside social media, or even leaving your environment for a while to find a place of solitude where you can truly listen. And let me tell you, this isn't just about physical silence. It's also about mental silence. The noise inside your head can be just as loud, if not louder, than the noise around you. Your thoughts can be overwhelming. Worries about the future, regrets from the past, fears about what might happen. All of these thoughts create internal noise that blocks out God's voice. When you come into God's presence, you must quiet your mind. You must take every anxious thought captive and surrender it to him. This takes practice. It takes discipline. But when you learn to quiet your mind, you create a space where God can speak clearly and powerfully. To silence the noise also means to stop filling your life with distractions just to avoid being still. Many people struggle with silence because it forces them to confront themselves. It forces them to deal with their own thoughts, their own emotions, and sometimes the discomfort of being alone with God. But let me tell you, this is where breakthrough happens. When you silence the noise, you make room for God to deal with the things in your heart that need healing. It's in the silence that you hear his voice speak peace to your soul, healing to your brokenness, and direction to your confusion. When you silence the noise, you also begin to align your heart with God's will. You start to hear him speak with clarity, to guide you with precision. But you have to be willing to shut out the chaos. You have to be willing to sit in the quiet and trust that God's voice will be enough. Trust that he will speak when you make space for him. And trust that his voice is more than enough to lead you, to comfort you, and to fill you with his presence. So the question is, what noise are you willing to silence? What distractions are you willing to lay down? What will you choose to turn off so you can turn on the frequency of heaven? It's time to clear the clutter. It's time to shut out the noise. And when you do, you'll begin to hear God's voice with the clarity you've been longing for. So often we think that hearing God's voice has to come in grand, dramatic moments. We look for the big signs, the burning bush, the thunderous voice from the heavens of miracles that we read about in Scripture. We expect these monumental moments to mark the moments when God will speak to us with clarity. But the truth is, God is often speaking in the small moments, the quiet whispers that we overlook, the little nudges that we tend to dismiss as insignificant. In a world that is obsessed with the big, the bold, and the spectacular, we've lost sight of the power that lies in the small. The truth is that God's voice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it's a gentle whisper. It's the soft promptings in your heart, the quiet conviction that stirs deep within your spirit. We often overlook these small moments because we're waiting for something bigger, something louder. But let me tell you, the small moments are just as important as the big ones, because in those small moments, God is teaching us, guiding us, and speaking to us with profound clarity. Think about the times in your life when you've had an encounter with God. Maybe it wasn't during a thunderstorm or a grand event. Maybe it was in a moment of stillness during your morning prayer, or when you were sitting alone reflecting on life. Those small moments are where God speaks most clearly. It's in the quiet times when everything else is calm that His voice becomes unmistakable. But we miss it because we're waiting for the flash of lightning, the earth-shaking revelation. I want to challenge you today to pay attention to the small moments. The moments when you're sitting in silence, when you're reflecting on your day, when you're alone with your thoughts. It's in these small moments that God often speaks. It might be a thought that suddenly comes to mind, a feeling that you can't explain, or a moment of clarity in the midst of your confusion. It's easy to dismiss these moments, to think they're just coincidence. But if you take the time to sit with them, to ponder them, you'll realize that they are, in fact, the voice of God guiding you. We are conditioned to think that everything must be big to matter. We think that hearing God means waiting for a grand revelation, something that will change the course of our lives forever. But hearing God is not always about the big moments. Sometimes it's about the daily, quiet whispers that shape us over time. It's in the routine, the ordinary, the seemingly insignificant moments that God is preparing us for the extraordinary. If we are faithful with the small things, we will be prepared for the larger ones. Think about the way God worked throughout the Bible. He didn't just show up in grand earth-shaking events. He spoke to Elijah in the stillness of a gentle whisper. He spoke to Samuel in the quiet of the night. He guided David as a shepherd in the quiet fields with nothing but his thoughts and his God. God used the small moments to prepare them for the big callings on their lives. And He's doing the same with you. The small moments are not insignificant. They are divine appointments, and they are often where God reveals the most. In these small moments, God is molding your character, teaching you patience, and developing your spiritual sensitivity. It's when we're still, when we're alone with Him, that God is able to speak to the deepest parts of our soul. But we're too often distracted, too busy, and too focused on what's next to recognize that God is already speaking to us in the present. We're so consumed with chasing after the next big thing, the next big breakthrough, that we miss the powerful encounters happening in the quiet spaces of our lives. This is why it's so important to embrace the small moments, to embrace the silence, the stillness, and the simplicity of everyday life. When you learn to recognize God's voice in the small moments, you'll begin to hear Him more clearly in every moment of your life. You'll start to see that God doesn't just speak when everything is perfect or when you've reached the pinnacle of success. He speaks in the mess, in the ordinary, in the moments you think don't matter. Embracing the small moments means learning to slow down. It means stopping to appreciate the quiet, the stillness, and the beauty of the simple things. It means sitting in the presence of God without rushing, without distractions, and without expecting something grand. When you begin to embrace these small moments, you'll start to hear God's voice with a new level of clarity and understanding. His voice will no longer be distant, but intimately close, guiding you every step of the way. The small moments are often where we learn the greatest lessons. They are the moments where God shapes our hearts, builds our faith, and prepares us for what is to come. When you learn to embrace these moments, you'll find that they are not just small, they are significant. They are sacred. And in the quiet of these moments, God is speaking to you, revealing His purpose and leading you to the fullness of His plan for your life. In the hustle and bustle of life, we often find ourselves running from one thing to the next. We chase after accomplishments, possessions, success, and even relationships, believing that these things will bring us peace and fulfillment. But here's the truth. There is no true rest outside of the presence of God. Resting in His presence is not just about physical relaxation. It is about the peace and stillness that come when you are deeply connected with your Creator, when you are aligned with His will, and when you make space for His Spirit to fill your heart. We live in a culture that values productivity, constant movement, and nonstop achievement. We're taught that we must always be doing something, always be moving forward, always be working toward the next goal. And while work and purpose are important, there comes a point where the constant striving becomes exhausting. We reach a place where we realize that no matter how much we accomplish, there's still an emptiness. The noise of the world drowns out the stillness of God's voice, and the relentless busyness leaves us feeling worn out and spiritually depleted. That's why resting in God's presence is so crucial. It is the antidote to burnout, stress, and spiritual exhaustion. Resting in His presence means intentionally stepping away from the demands of the world and the pressures that weigh on you. It's choosing to stop and sit at the feet of Jesus, allowing Him to restore your soul and refresh your spirit. But this isn't just about a few minutes of quiet time in the morning or a quick prayer before bed. It's about cultivating a lifestyle of rest in His presence. It's about being intentional with your time, creating space for God to fill your life with His peace and grace. It's recognizing that in His presence, you don't have to strive. You don't have to perform. You don't have to prove yourself. You are simply accepted, loved, and embraced by the Father. The Bible says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Matthew 11:28. This invitation is not just about physical rest, it's an invitation to find rest for your soul. There's a kind of rest that only God can provide, a peace that transcends all understanding, a calm that quiets the storm in your heart. When you rest in His presence, you stop trying to control everything. You stop trying to manage every outcome. You stop fighting to make everything work according to your plan. Instead, you place it all in His hands, trusting that He will take care of the things you cannot control. But resting in His presence also requires trust. It means surrendering your worries, your anxieties, and your burdens to God, knowing that He is in control. It means recognizing that you don't have to carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. God is already working on your behalf, and when you rest in Him, you acknowledge His sovereignty over your life. You choose to stop striving and simply be in His presence, allowing Him to refresh you from the inside out. Resting in God is an act of faith. It's saying, I trust you, Lord. I trust that you know what's best for me. I trust that you will lead me, guide me, and provide for me in every area of my life. The peace that comes from resting in His presence is different from anything this world can offer. The world offers temporary distractions, things that numb us, things that pull us away from our true source of peace. But the peace of God is eternal. It is unshakable. It remains even in the midst of chaos. When you rest in God, you are tapping into a divine peace that doesn't depend on your circumstances. It's a peace that guards your heart and mind no matter what's happening around you. It's a peace that allows you to remain calm even in the face of adversity. When the world around you is storming, His presence is the anchor that keeps you steady. Resting in His presence also means being present with Him, not just during times of quiet solitude, but throughout your day. It means bringing God into every moment, into your work, your relationships, your decisions. It's about walking with Him, talking with Him, and letting Him be a constant presence in your life. The more you practice His presence, the more you recognize His voice in every situation. Resting in His presence is not just about escaping the world. It's about learning to live in the world with God's peace as your foundation. This kind of rest isn't passive. It's an act of surrender. It's about choosing God over the distractions. It's about saying no to the pressure to perform and yes to the peace that only He can give. When you rest in his presence, you are allowing God to do the work in you that you cannot do for yourself. You are allowing his spirit to refresh you, to heal you, to restore you, and to equip you for the journey ahead. You don't have to work for his love. You don't have to earn his grace. All he asks is that you come rest and receive. In this world of endless demands, rest in his presence is the soul's true refuge. It's where you find clarity in the confusion, strength in your weakness, and peace in the turmoil. It's in his presence that you are reminded of who you are, loved, chosen, redeemed. It's in his presence that you receive the healing and restoration your soul desperately needs. And when you rest in his presence, you are strengthened for the road ahead. You're given the endurance to continue running the race with perseverance. The burdens are lighter. The path is clearer. And you're equipped with everything you need to face whatever comes next. Rest in his presence is a gift. It's an invitation to be still, to stop fighting, and to allow God to be God in your life. When you learn to rest in him, you will discover that everything you're striving for can be found in his peace. This peace will carry you through the storms, the trials, and the challenges of life. It's the kind of rest that only he can provide, and it's the kind of rest that will sustain you for the long journey ahead. In life, we are often faced with moments that require us to make a decision, take action, or respond to a calling. Sometimes these moments come quietly, almost imperceptibly, while at other times they come with urgency, demanding an immediate response. But regardless of how they come, the key is to respond without delay. The truth is, life is full of opportunities and divine invitations that require a prompt response. When God speaks to you, when he moves in your life, it's important to answer quickly, to act swiftly, and to respond without hesitation. Responding without delay requires a level of trust. It's about believing that when God speaks, he knows what's best for you, and that his timing is perfect. Many of us struggle with the idea of responding immediately because we want to overthink the situation, analyze every detail, and wait for the perfect moment. But in doing so, we miss out on the blessings, the breakthroughs, and the divinements that are right in front of us. Responding without delay is not about rushing decisions. It's about listening to the still small voice of God and trusting that he will lead you every step of the way. Think about the times in your life when you felt a nudge from the Holy Spirit, a prompting to take a step of faith, to reach out to someone, or to make a change in your life. If you delayed, if you waited too long, you may have missed that window of opportunity. Delay or response often comes from a place of fear or doubt. We question whether we're hearing God clearly or if the decision we're about to make is the right one. But this kind of hesitation can paralyze us and rob us of the blessings that are waiting on the other side of obedience. In the Bible, we see many examples of individuals who responded immediately to God's call. Take Abraham, for example. God called him to leave his homeland to step out into the unknown, and Abraham responded without hesitation. He didn't know all the details, he didn't have all the answers, but he trusted God and he obeyed without delay. Because of his immediate response, God blessed him and made him the father of many nations. Then there's the story of the disciples being called by Jesus. They dropped everything they were doing and followed him instantly without question. In their immediate obedience, they discovered a life of purpose, adventure, and miracles. Had they delayed their response, they would have missed the opportunity to walk with Jesus and be part of the greatest movement in history. When God calls you, he's not always looking for you to have all the answers. He's looking for your willingness to respond. And the quicker you respond, the quicker you open yourself up to his guidance, his provision, and his perfect plan for your life. When you respond without delay, you're telling God that you trust him, that you believe in his goodness, and that you are ready to step into whatever he has for you. Delaying your response only prolongs the journey and can cause unnecessary setbacks. Every moment of hesitation is an opportunity missed to experience the fullness of what God has planned for you. There's a difference between being impulsive and being obedient. Obedience is not about acting without thought or wisdom. It's about recognizing the voice of God and responding in faith. It's about recognizing the timing of God and knowing when to step out in faith. Impulsiveness can lead to mistakes, but prompt obedience leads to blessings. You don't have to have it all figured out, but you do have to be willing to move when God says move. It's in the stepping out, the trusting, and the responding that you see God's faithfulness revealed in your life. Responding without delay also speaks to your spiritual sensitivity. It's about tuning your heart to hear God's voice clearly and being ready to act on what you hear. The more you practice responding to His voice, the more attuned you become to His promptings. You begin to recognize His voice over all the noise of the world, and you learn to distinguish between your own desires and God's will. When you respond quickly, it becomes a habit. That habit builds your faith, your obedience, and your relationship with God. But let's be real, responding without delay is not always easy. Sometimes the call to act immediately feels overwhelming. It requires courage to step out when everything inside of you is screaming to stay comfortable. It requires faith to trust that the path God is leading you on is the right one, even if you can't see the entire picture. But that's the beauty of responding in faith. It's a trust in the unseen, a confidence that God is in control, and a belief that He will provide everything you need along the way. When you respond immediately, you move in the flow of God's will. You move in alignment with plan, and that plan is always better than anything you could have planned for yourself. It may not always make sense at first, but obedience leads to understanding. God will never ask you to move without preparing the way before you. His call is always accompanied by His provision, His protection, and His peace. But the only way to experience that is to respond without delay, to trust in the process and to obey even when it's difficult. In your daily life, you will encounter moments where God is calling you to respond, whether it's reaching out to someone who needs encouragement, taking a step of faith in your career, or making a decision that requires courage. The key is not to overthink it or put it off. Respond without delay. The more you do this, the more you will see God move in powerful ways in your life. You will witness how He opens doors that seem closed, how He makes a way where there seemed to be no way, and how He honors your obedience with blessings beyond measure. Responding without delay is not a one-time decision. It's a lifestyle. It's a habit you build by consistently choosing to trust God, to hear His voice, and to act on what He's telling you. When you embrace this mindset, you begin to walk in a new level of confidence, knowing that God is with you every step of the way, guiding you, strengthening you, and empowering you to fulfill His purpose for your life. In a world that constantly encourages comparison, it's easy to lose sight of the unique path that has been set before you. Every day we are bombarded with images of other people's successes, lifestyles, and achievements. Social media, the workplace, and even our own circles of influence can make us feel as though we are falling behind or that we're not measuring up to others. But the truth is, your journey is your own, and it's unlike anyone else's. When you focus on your own journey, free yourself from the weight of comparison, and you give yourself the space to grow, to evolve, and to discover the unique calling that God has placed on your life. It's important to remember that your journey is not defined by the milestones of others. Just because someone else is moving ahead in their career, relationships, or personal development doesn't mean you are falling behind. Everyone has their own timeline. Everyone has their own process. There is no universal blueprint for success. What matters most is that you stay true to your own path, that you honor your own pace, and that you trust God to lead you every step of the way. The Bible tells us in Psalm 119, 105, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. God is the one who lights our way, and His guidance is specific to us. His timing for your life is tailored to you alone, and the more you embrace your unique journey, the more you will discover the beauty and purpose in it. Focusing on your own journey means letting go of the distractions that come from constantly looking around at where others are. It's easy to look at someone else's success and start to feel inadequate or envious. We see their achievements, their relationships, and their outward appearance, and we compare it to our own lives, often overlooking the struggles and challenges they too are facing behind the scenes. But the truth is, comparison steals joy. It steals your peace. It robs you of the ability to celebrate your own progress because you're too focused on someone else's highlight reel. When you focus on your own journey, you can begin to appreciate the beauty of your own process with all of its ups and downs, twists and turns. Your path is not meant to look like anyone else's, and that is the very thing that makes it special. God has designed a specific purpose for your life, and that purpose will not look like anyone else's. The experiences you go through, the challenges you face, and the victories you achieve are all part of God's perfect plan for you. But in order to walk in that plan, you must keep your eyes fixed on your own path. Focusing on your journey means embracing your youth story, your unique talents, and your unique new calling. When you begin to focus on your own journey, you begin to recognize the gifts that God has placed inside of you and the purpose He has for your life. You begin to see that you don't need to be anyone else but yourself to accomplish what He's called you to do. It could be tempting to look at someone else's success and try to replicate their journey, but that's not what God has in mind for you. Your story is yours alone. The lessons you learn along the way are shaping you into the person God intended you to be. Embracing your own journey means trusting the process even when things don't seem to be moving as quickly as you'd like or when things take unexpected turns. You can't rush your journey and you can't try to force it into someone else's mold. Trust that God is working in you and through you in His perfect timing, and that the steps you're taking, no matter how small, are leading you exactly where you need to be. Part of focusing on your own journey is learning to set boundaries and prioritize your own well-being. In a world that is constantly vying for your attention, it's easy to get swept up in the noise and distractions. We often get pulled in so many directions that we lose sight of the things that matter most. Focusing on your own journey means learning to say no to the things that don't serve your purpose and saying yes to the things that align with God's will for your life. It means protecting your peace, guarding your time, and choosing to invest in the relationships, activities, and opportunities that are aligned with your purpose. Focusing on your own journey also means recognizing the importance of patience. God's timing is often different from our own. We want to see the results of our efforts right away. But God is more concerned with our growth and development than with instant gratification. When you focus on your own journey, you learn to trust in His perfect timing. You learn that the process is just as important as the destination, and that the things you're learning along the way are shaping you into the person God has called you to be. Patience allows you to embrace the journey even when it feels like progress is slow, because you understand that every step is leading you toward your ultimate purpose. One of the greatest challenges we face in focusing on our own journey is dealing with the fear of missing out. We look at other people's lives and wonder if we're making the right choices. We worry that we're falling behind or that we'll never achieve the things we see others achieving. But when you focus on your own journey, you come to understand that there's no such thing as missing out. God has placed you exactly where you need to be and is guiding you toward the right opportunities, relationships, and experiences that will help you fulfill your purpose. Your journey is unfolding exactly as it's meant to, and the opportunities you're meant to encounter will counter when at the right time, not a moment too soon or too late. In focusing on your own journey, you'll also learn the importance of gratitude. When you stop comparing yourself to others, you start to see the blessings that are right in front of you. You begin to appreciate the progress you've made, the lessons you've learned, and the growth you've experienced. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you don't have to what you already have, and it helps you see the beauty in your own life. It's easy to overlook the blessings we already have when we're constantly looking elsewhere, but when we focus on our own journey, we begin to notice how much we've already been given. The journey you are on is uniquely yours. It's a journey of growth, discovery, and transformation. It's a journey that is meant to be lived fully without the pressure of comparison or the distractions of other people's paths. When you focus on your own journey, you embrace the uniqueness of your story, the timing of your progress, and the beauty of your process. You allow yourself the freedom to grow, to stumble, to rise again, and to trust that God is leading you every step of the way. In conclusion, focusing on your own journey is one of the most powerful decisions you can make for your life. It frees you from the constant burden of comparison and allows you to step into the unique purpose God has specifically designed for you. Your journey may look different from others, and that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Embrace your path, trust in God's timing, and recognize that every step you take is leading you towards something greater. The challenges, the victories, and the lessons along the way are all part of your personal growth. When you focus on your journey, you not only honor your own story, but also align yourself with God's perfect plan for your life. So take a deep breath, step forward with confidence, and remember that the only race you need to run is the one that God has set before you. Keep your eyes fixed on your own path and watch as God unfolds His beautiful purpose for your life.